Hello and welcome to Daily Politics on Trust TV. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy and governance. I'm Hamza Idris. Debate on the need to restructure Nigeria's election management body, INEC, has been on the table for quite some time now. It is coming on the heels of the various challenges plaguing the country's electoral process that stakeholders say must be looked into holistically in order to strengthen the leadership recruitment drive. Proponents of the need to unbundle INEC are speaking on the basis of the recommendation of the famous Justice West Electoral Reform Commission, which provide the need to reduce the burden shouldered by electoral body, ranging from organizing elections, delineation of constituencies, attending litigations, among several others. It is against this backdrop we'll be engaging with the spokesperson for the OBDT movement, Dr. Yunusa Tanko, who recently revisited the debate. He will also be appraising the scoreboard of the current Bola Tinubu administration as it clocked 1 year in office. He joins us in the studio. Doctor, thank you very much for coming to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, but before we go to INEC or Tinubu's 1 year, the raging issue now, taxations. What is your take on the level at which new taxes are being introduced in the polity?
Well, I was just learning a word here from one of your staff who was telling me that somebody was saying that it's a government of taxation, or they call it taxonomy.
Taxology government.
Taxological government.
Yes.
So it's a government of taxation by the taxationists for the taxationists. So meaning that it's a government orchestrated to continue to squeeze the ordinary man for the benefit of those who are in government. Because if you look at it very well, it is them that will benefit from it when they share allocation and budgetary allocation. It is them that will share the money and spend it for the interest of themselves. Just like as we are seeing in the Coastal Road project and any other project.
You don't believe in that?
No, I don't. It's a good idea, but it's wrongly it's a mispriority.
But they also said that they should start the roadmap to, the Lagos-Sokoto coastal road also.
That has already been in the pipeline. We've heard about that for a long time. But look, the truth about it is that our existing road, the ones we have, like if you want to move from here, Abuja to Kaduna,
yes,
you know what you go through. You cannot even, by almost halfway, you will have your probably a tire burst, or probably one pothole or the other, or you have to skew it from one angle to the other before you get to Kaduna. This from here to Kaduna.
And it has been there for over 8 years now.
We managed to finish that of Lagos-Ibadan Road. You cannot travel from here, a journey from Abuja to Benin, a journey of 4 hours. You cannot travel it all through the day. You get stuck along the line. You cannot travel from Benin to either Warri or any other eastern part of the country. You cannot travel clearly from Onitsha going to Oka, from there to Enugu State. You cannot. When you talk about other areas from Gusau, passing through Funtua and the rest of them,
Oranamoda,
all of them.
So what you are saying is they should not do the coastal road now, or they should prioritize?
They should prioritize. At the moment, what we need is to have all of our network road across Nigeria internally working. See, the major problem we are having about insecurity is because of the neglect that we give to the local governments. 774 local governments are not actually, if not for some states, can interlink with the major highways of Nigeria. And most of the food that we consume or eat, that we take, comes from this particular local government. So if you are going to prioritize for the gains of Nigeria in terms of issue of security, in terms of economic development of the local government and all, in terms of making sure there's a connectivity between the Nigerian major city and then reducing the influx of young men and ladies and girls from their local government into saturating the city, the best thing we could have done was to even invest in our local government.
But they need taxes now to generate money to do some of these things. Is it that the taxes are many? Or where do you think? Because we know all over the world, people pay taxes. If you go to UK, US, France, everywhere, people pay taxes. Why are you people in the opposition against some of these taxes?
Yes, because we are against them because they have not impacted on the interests of the people. You tax the people and you're not giving them succor in reciprocal to what you are taxing them. Just like as I said, in the local government, you are saddled with the responsibility of providing for schools, internal roads within the street and all. I'm talking about payment of schools, teachers and all, education and health. All of these are enshrined in the local government by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Yes.
Unfortunately, when you pay tax, most of the money are not even seen. It ends up in the pocket of some few. It's not as if it's reciprocal back to the people by making sure that all of these amenities are being provided. So therefore, we must challenge the government in this regard. If the taxation is affecting the interest of the people positively and they are seeing the result, you don't even need somebody to tell him to pay for taxes. He will gladly pay. I give you an example. We went around recently, His Excellency Peter Obi was building borehole to areas that are highly in need of water. A case example is what we have in Zaria City, very close to the Emir's Palace. You know, Zaria in its own self has issues with water.
Yes.
That have been there for very long. You can see all of those major, heavy surface tanks. About 4 or 5 of them in Zaria. Majority of them are not supplying water to Zaria. And so when we visited, we faced the same challenge. The water started coming in, but it stopped. What did they do? They tagged that particular project as substandard. But meanwhile, you take an example. If these big men want to build boreholes for themselves, they don't call it substandard. No matter what they provided for themselves. And none of them will talk about that, no, we are punching the surface and then you create environmental hazard. When they put it in their own houses, it won't cause any problem.
So what you are saying is about accountability.
Yeah, accountability and caring for the people.
All right. Thank you very much.
These are the most important thing. Caring for the people, most important.
All right. Now back to the other issue which you brought to the fore, and it's like it is generating interest. We have off-season elections.
Yes.
Coming up. We have had quite a number in the last few months. Why are you still interested that INEC should be unbundled?
Okay. A couple of years ago, precisely 3 to 4 years, before Justice Mohammed Iwe's report was released, I was IPAC chairman at that time. So,
Inter-Party Advisory Council.
Yes. I was the panel
umbrella of
all political parties.
Yes.
PDP, APC, where we were under our leadership at that time.
Yes.
And so we noticed that INEC has been saddled with an enormous responsibility. So when I spoke on Channels Television and I said we need INEC to be unbundled, specifically so that INEC will be involved specifically for election purposes only. And then we will have an enforcement agency who will enforce minor crime or major crimes that have been done within the election process. And then they talk about the issue of delineation and then bang. Maybe I had some premonition of some of the things that was being discussed at that time. Then eventually the waste report came out in line with that. And then I had a call from a major stakeholders in INEC itself. He just said, Dr. Tanko, God bless you. You have just hit the nail on the right head, because as I speak right now, we are saddled with the responsibility of thousands of litigation. Which one are we going to face? By the time we are dealing with this particular issue of litigation, another area is coming. For example, if we say that we cannot distribute ballot paper because it's inimical to the process of the election already, then we are dealing with that. Then another judgment will come and say that no, INEC can go ahead and do this. So we are confused. We will go and produce papers, election materials, and at the end of it all, it may not be useful. So that is double cost. So while we are dealing with that in the department of we are also dealing with the issue of how to create delineation, create more polling units in the area where there are large number of people, and then we're dealing with the election. So there are too many work for us to do. And so therefore, if INEC can be unbundled, it's going to create a lot of, make it easy for us to give credible election. And that was, he was so happy with that particular thing. So we are revisiting it. It's very important that for credible elections, we had a very credible election in Edo and Ondo, the last one.
Okay, you trust?
Oh no, I did, and I even commended INEC for that. One thing that people will know us for, we stand on the consistent level. If you do what is right, we will not castigate you. Look, one thing is good, one is bad, and it affects you and I. So that election, you saw what happened in Edo and Ondo. That was 2019 or so, I cannot remember. But that election brought in Governor Obaseki and may his soul rest in peace, late Akeredolu. The result was very, very clear. It goes symbiotically very well with what was pasted on the wall and what was released by the viewers at that time. There was no ambiguity, there was no argument. So when you are defeated, you know you are defeated. And that brings in credibility to the system. And it brings in, usher in good leadership. So that does not mean that probably we are commending any work that any other government must have done. But at least the process was assumed to have been seen to have been clean, free, and fair. So we want to ask the National Assembly, or make a demand, as it were, because we have the right to demand, that they should look at the issue of unbundling INEC.
Now, if you have your way to say, okay, unbundle it into how many components?
At least 3 at the meantime.
Which and which?
The first one is the Electoral Commission that will deal with only elections. The process of election, what time and how, agreeing on the processes, making sure that the voters are being mobilized enough to know, and then there will be credible elections. That's one. 2, we talk about the Enforcement Commission. The Enforcement Commission will look at the area of election malpractices in terms of stealing and running away and snatching and balloting and running away with the boxes. And in terms of issue of creative manipulation, in terms of the one we saw now in glitches that happen, they are electoral fraud. Somebody is supposed to have been held responsible
for that.
Yes.
The fellow of the Weber.
Yes, it's supposed to be held responsible. If actually it happened, somebody was given the responsibility to do that, because it looks very funny and it makes us laughable as a country. 3 elections took place at the same time. Results were only published accordingly for 2 of that particular election. 1, the presidential election, had glitches at the same time. You start to question how.
But you know, after long hiatus, INEC finally opened up.
Yes.
I'm sure they explained why it happened. It was maybe because of the large traffic that was never expected.
The large traffic cannot happen only for one election, when the 3 elections were happening simultaneously.
They justified it. They said, for instance, if you are from Kaduna,
yes,
and then there was election for the senatorial, your interest most likely is for Kaduna Central, where you belong, or Kaduna North or Kaduna South, or Bauchi North or Bauchi South. That was why the traffic was not as intense as it was for the...
What it ought to have happened was that if there's a traffic, the result of Bauchi State or Kaduna State should cut across the 3 elections.
So you strongly believe that INEC did not come out clean?
No, they were not clear on that particular matter. They know it.
Okay, now which other arm do you think the electoral process should also?
Okay, now when you look at the issue of enforcement, you now look at the issue of delineation.
Okay.
I give you an example of Gwarimpa and some other areas that are developing in Abuja here. You see a large movement of people from one area to another area. Those particular areas were not provided for. Even though INEC tried to work on it and tried to improve on it, but a large number of people may not be able to vote because there's a restriction of movement on that day. So that particular large area need to have their own polling unit that can accommodate them. So the work of the delineation, which had to do with National Population Commission and probably Boundary Commission and the rest of them, and this happened cut across the cities. Because there are new development. When you come to Kaduna, for example, on your way is Gwanungora and the rest of them, you know that there have been problems, so people are migrating from one place to another. They don't have polling units. And so for them to vote, they have to move from one place to another. But you see, the major problem of this particular delineation is that it ought to have been done long before election time. Maybe 2 years or 3 years before it creates a lot of apprehension that maybe INEC is trying to play a fast one on some political party. So the lack of trust and creating those polling units create apprehension. So don't do it close to election, that when you're almost done at that time. And you need to provide the data for everybody to see so that everybody will be happy and say that, look, this process is clean. Just like when you accuse the northern part of this particular country of having large population without you justifying. But the truth about it is that the north is larger in population.
And numbers
you cannot equate it, because most of us, we married early and we have more than one wife. We have, we have more than one wife, and then we get married early in life compared to southern part of the country where they only have maybe one wife at a later age of life. And so you cannot. When some people are accusing the North of having animals and all, I felt that very, very laughable. You cannot compare it. So, but then when that has already been established, that there is this population and all. Whether we are managing this world is another matter anyway, or we are using it to our own advantage in the North is another matter entirely. Because at this point in time, you now look at the delineation of the particular population. How well has it been catered for through our electoral process? Now, finally on this, before we move to the final issue we want to discuss with you, is do we really need a national electoral commission? Because I heard that in other places, like in the US, it's a very simple matter to administer elections. Should Nigeria start looking towards that direction? It is a very simple matter because there is trust in the process. What we have in Nigeria, there is no trust. And two, it has to do, these things network to each other. There's so much quest for power, and it's not being used for the interest of the people that are being governed. And the quest for power also is for personal gain. Self-serving. Self-serving is not for the interest of the people. Because people see it as the only way in making money. So the struggle for that particular content becomes so vicious. So hence the need for actually a national body that can support that. Yes. Also, finally, but then it's not about supporting that has to do with how we reduce the gains that everybody think you are going to get in that particular power. All right. We hope to have more time to discuss this. Now, it is May. Yes. In the next couple of days, this administration will be 1 year. Yes. Now, if I say, okay, assess it. Yes. If you say assess it, quite honestly, I don't want to sound condescending in a way, but I'm going to be very, very objective. There is misplaced of priority and lack of good communication, heavily managed by propaganda. These are the major problem. How do you mean? Exactly. When I say miscommunication, from the beginning, when they took over power, their interest was to play to the gallery without looking at the content of what they are selling. The president's speech ought to have referred to the previous administration that already even there is no provisional budget for removal of beyond July. Yeah, exactly. That communication was not made. The president felt as if that it was a big issue that people are, even we actually said we are going to remove this issue of you're talking about the obedience. The obedience, and we said we are going to remove the issue of payment of subsidy on fuel. But how we said we are going to do it is quite different. So now the president just announced it. At that period already, Nigerians are already crying, pain and pain, even as at that time. Even as at that time, they were in the pain. So the removal came like a shock. And Nigerians, those who are into business of petroleum and all, took advantage. Right there and then, their old stock, they sold it at new stock. Putting more pain and pang on the Nigerian people from whatever you used to buy at 100, now became 400 or 500. Just a bottle of Coke that you used to buy at 50 naira. Today it's about almost 400 naira. Yeah. 400 naira. So if there's no commensurate, and the instant salary increase is not done. Even up to today, they're still struggling with the issue of payment. So is that where you're heading to when you said all of these things are being by propaganda? Yes. The propaganda is that we are doing it as if maybe we are doing it for the interest of the public, have a patience, it will get to the no. But those who are cutting away with your money and squeezing you are not waiting for any time. They take advantage of you instantly. And that was one miscalculation and misinformation. And instead of the government coming out to tell the Nigerian people the truth about the situation, they kept on, when you lie, you'll be looking for another lie to cover the first lie that you lied. So, but if you take your time to say the truth, it sets you free. You will be less burdened. But that was not done. So now, second issue, you now move again. That particular issue now affected the commodities in the market. Tomato, pepper, rice, beans, everybody is crying. Even those who give you something are crying. Those who even consume are crying. Those who are not going to, they are crying. But they cannot come out and tell you because they have to put a defensive position. They have to give hope. Oh, they call it renew hope. They have to give it. So that also now came with a lot of propaganda. No, the dollar is not supposed to increase. No, it's below the change. People who affected this particular, especially most of our people in the north were the ones that heavily felt the effect of the issue of below the change. No, they are the ones.
Because they are getting free money. After all.
Look, when you talk about how can they be getting free, somebody somewhere is giving. What are the laws? Where are the laws? This is simple business. I buy this and I exchange it at social rate. It's very clear. So it is the same people who are in government who manipulate the same people for their own basic interests. I cannot go to central bank and go and collect dollars. How? How do I do it? Somebody has to give it to me from that particular central bank.
But then the impression in government cycle is that you know, he who looks from the outside, you know, and your document made by Kiyapugudu.
Yes, exactly.
And that is what exactly you people are, including
exactly.
the PDP.
Exactly.
So, assuming it was Peter Obi that won, don't you think he will also remove that subsidy because there's no provision for it?
Exactly. Now, when you say we said we are going to remove, His Excellency says we're going to remove subsidy, this was the modus operandi in his document of manifesto, which is the social contract between him and his government and the people. He said, look, we are going to remove subsidy and then we have a process. The process is that we need to build, while we are thinking about how do we generate our internal resources, we have to build modular refineries in the 6 geographical local governments, states, federation. One in the northwest, in the northeast, north central, south, southeast, and southwest.
Meaning that assuming he were there, we will have been enjoying subsidy.
Yes, of course.
Because most likely those refineries wouldn't have been in place by now.
No. The modular refineries don't take you too long. Nigerians are having small refineries in the south of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. They call it illegal. Didn't you know that there are bunkerings and those who produce fuel locally? Nigerians do it. And it produces. So what we are saying is that instead of you criminalizing that particular process, legalize it. Because already what we are having is that major refinery cannot work because of the heavy input of machinery that need to do the repairs. So once that is in place, it reduces the cost. Instead of you exporting our fuel outside the country, everything we export and getting very few. Very embarrassing. Remember when we have the refinery in Kaduna? Remember, it was a big business in Kaduna refinery. We have fufu coming out from the same petroleum. We have others doing petroleum jelly and all of that. But now when you export the crude oil, you only get petroleum. It's what about kerosene and the rest of them? And you will pay for even exporting them and you pay for even importing. Why? When you cannot do it locally in a local way, that will have created employment for Nigerians. And that will have reduces the prices within the short period of time within each of these particular zones. Why we are doing that, it's just like you buying this MTN. You know, like I bought my MTN card at 22,000 naira at the initial point.
Around 2,000.
Yes, but now it has been diversified into different networks, and that brings the prices down to almost free. So that is the way to get. Even as of today, if you say you are going to bring the prices of fuel down, it's a total lie. It's a total lie, because the only thing you can do is saturate the market with the product. When you saturate the product in the market, it automatically reduces. Just like if you are buying plantain now, everybody knows there's a time in which you can buy plantain and yams. Even if you are going to Kaduna, you know when to buy yams. If you are buying it at the moment now, you know that it's very, very high because there's a limited supply. But once the yam season comes in, instead of you buying 10,000 naira worth of tubers of yam of 5, you can buy it at almost like 2,005. So because the product is available. So when you saturate it in the market, it definitely crashes the price. It's not rocket science. You don't need to be a professor of economy to be able to bring all of these particular calculations that they're doing. It's all false. All you need to do is saturate the market with the product, and you see, definitely the prices will come down.
The other issue is, of course, anti-graft war.
Yes.
Will you say something on this?
Well, you see, you criminalize a society because you have not been able to pull out a high number of people out of poverty level. Peter Obi, Excellency, will always say that. Let's look at how do we reduce.
Even though we are not campaigning.
Yes, but it has to do with Nigeria. Look, when it's comfortable for you, I mean for them, it's comfortable for you. Because your phone the call that you will get will definitely reduce. Because like people, our brothers and sisters in the villages, if they are doing their farming, they are doing their potatoes, they are doing their tomatoes, onions, and they are selling and they are making gains, they won't call you for anything. But today, go back home. I'm sure by the time you get 10 calls, most of them are requests for money. So we are not being creative in thinking. We only need to provide the amenities for our brothers and sisters in their local government where they domicile. They will be the first security of our sovereignty. They will provide security because they know that it's their enclave. In fact, many of them will not even engage or they will not be even available for criminal activities. But neglecting them, that gave room for all of this. And so these particular anti-graft agencies, those who want to steal money, who steal money in the large number because they want to impress their brothers and sisters in the villages. Now criminality becomes something that you can wear like Barbariga and say, yes, I'm a multi-billionaire. But meanwhile, you are stealing their own money and putting them in problem. So, so these are basic issues.
Thank you very much. I wish we discussed more. I just took two issues in relation to the Tinubu administration, and we are inching towards May 29. For sure, we'll bring you to the studio.
I'll be glad to join you.
Well, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you very much. God bless Nigeria.
Yunusa Tanko. Yes, because we've been with Dr. Yunusa Tanko, spokesperson of the Obedient Movement, and we'll take a short break. When we return, the conversation commences with another guest. Thank you for being there.
Thank you.
Welcome back. If you are just joining, this is Daily Politics reaching you live from Trust TV. You can do well by following us across our social media platforms and also watch us live on YouTube. President Bola Tinubu has just returned to the country after spending 2 weeks outside Nigeria, even though it is not yet clear whether the president returned on board his dedicated aircraft, Nigeria Air Force 001. The president reportedly abandoned the Boeing 737 in Netherlands while on his way to Saudi Arabia for the World Economic Summit and instead used a chartered jet. Was it a coincidence? Because Vice President Kashim Shettima had also made a U-turn to Nigeria when his official aircraft also developed a problem while on his way to the United States. And now joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Captain Alex Ongoba, the renowned aviation analyst, consultant, and president of Aircraft Pilots and Owners Association. He just wants us to look at some current developments in the nation's aviation sector vis-a-vis the reported cases of malfunctioning of aircraft in the presidential fleet, among others. Thank you very much, Captain, for joining us, and welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me on the show. Good evening.
Anyway, let me start on a lighter note. Which aircraft did the president use to return to Nigeria? Because we heard that he abandoned the aircraft in Netherlands because it developed some problems. Anyway, this is just a light question.
Nobody would know this unless it's on television due to the security nature of these operations.
Yeah, of course. Now, but you heard of what happened, and of course, as we said earlier, you are an aviation expert. You are also a consultant. Is it really normal to hear stories like this? You know, presidential aircraft developing problem in a foreign land, the vice presidential aircraft developing a problem mid-air, forcing him to make a detour back to the country. Where is the problem?
I think that these circumstances are generally, I would call them unusual because aircraft reliability, especially for a presidential aircraft, is extremely high. So these are most unusual for the president to have this kind of problem, as well as the vice president to have this kind of problem. But we also have to understand that the presidential fleet is not the one airplane. There's over 6 airplanes that can go intercontinental. And so if the president has a semblance of a problem, a replacement can be made available to him rather quickly. And so I don't know. And if the vice president also has an issue with his aircraft, which is also unusual, but these are mechanical devices, and you can't be certain what will go wrong at a particular time. But there's a fleet of these airplanes available to the presidency, so they can be used at any time to substitute for a different aircraft.
Yes, and from the grapevine, what we heard was that they are cooking something of sort. I mean, you know how Nigerian authorities behave? That is like they are planning to buy new aircraft to themselves, but you mentioned that there are quite a number in the fleet. What is your take on this? Could this be maybe an unfounded allegation, or it may likely be true? Because a lot of stories along that line.
Unfortunately, as a society, we have learned to distrust our politicians, and so we question every motive of every action that they take. And so there's a lot of conjecture. Because 2 airplanes have suddenly stopped working, that may be the indication that the government is planning to buy additional aircraft. They've been talking over the years about reducing the number of aircraft in the fleet. And so since they haven't said they are buying aircraft, it would be wrong to assume that that is the intention.
Yes, and then we reported here some weeks ago in the Daily Trust newspaper that, we heard it from reliable sources that more than $5 million or $15 million, I can't remember the actual figure, that, was expended on 001, that is the main aircraft of the president. Is it too old? Because you are in the industry. What we gathered was that it was purchased during the period of former President Olusegun Obasanjo. Can we say it is old enough to be replaced at this time?
Well, if we wish to replace it, it would be up to the discretion of the government. But you have to remember that the US 001 is much, much older. 747 that the US president uses is much, much older. And so these airplanes are not affected by age. They're affected by the kind of maintenance that goes into them. And it is a presidential aircraft, so it achieves the high level of maintenance. And it's also not a strain craft. Nigeria within itself, without expending all these dollars, has the capabilities to support this aircraft within the Nigerian economy in terms of heavy maintenance. The presidential BPJ, the Boeing jet, which is the presidential aircraft, is no different from the commercial 737s that are used by Nigerian Airlines, except that the interior is configured in an executive mode. And so if Nigerian engineers and Nigerian maintenance facilities are able to do maintenance for a similar aircraft at Aero or Airpeace, then certainly we can do this internally. And if we're going out to do it, we're saving dollars by doing it internally. So there's no reason to say we want to change the airplane because it's too old. There's no such thing as old aircraft, especially one used barely. Presidential aircraft is not used like a commercial aircraft every single day. It's used occasionally, so the hours are quite low. And so with maintenance, that airplane is good for another 10 to 50 years. So that is in fact. Then we have, like I said, over 6 other airplanes in the presidential fleet that can be substituted at any time to take the president where he wants to go. The only difference with this aircraft is it carries a lot more people. The others carry less than 16 people. This will carry over 50 people.
But do we need such a fleet in Nigeria, Captain?
Sorry, your question was?
I said, do we need such a large fleet in Nigeria, presidential fleet, quite a number of aircraft on the presidential fleet? Where do you belong? You think they should trim the numbers and have functional ones that they can manage without actually causing a lot of havoc to foreign monies coming into Nigeria in terms of maintenance?
Well, this has been an ongoing debate, even the presidency. We've had President Buhari talk about reducing the number of airplanes on presidential fleet. We've had the current president talk about the reduction, and some airplanes were sold to the Buhari administration, the prior administration. So the question, do we need many aircraft? Presidential fleet doesn't just transport the president. You transport the president, you transport the vice president, you transport the Senate president, you transport government delegations to international conferences. We don't have, like many countries, a robust domestic airline industry that goes to many destinations where the president would have to go to. So we have no choice really but to maintain a presidential fleet. It doesn't necessarily have to be aircraft. It could be three, but in the demands of government and the various tiers of government, the numbers are not out of place. The maintenance is a cost, but I think these things make a difference. The economy is in doing so well, as your speaker and others have spoken about it. If the economy is doing well, we'll not be worried about the operation of the presidential fleet.
All right, now let's move to your domain, because you are the president of Aircraft Pilots and Owners Association. How is the environment?
Not actually pilots, it's aircraft owners.
Aircraft
owners and Pilot Association.
Yes. Now, how is the environment?
The environment is tough. We had a meeting last week where I am also the second vice president of the Aviation Roundtable, and we talked about the gaps that exist across the entire sector. We don't have enough pilots. The projection is that Africa will require 60,000 new pilots in the next 10 to 15 years. We're training them, and the ones we train, we're not putting them into the airplanes because they come out of school with very low time. And so they need to make available opportunities for people to begin to fly, to be necessary hours to get into airline operation. We have shortages of air traffic controllers, we have shortages of engineers, we have shortages all around in every part of the industry, and people are not training because they're not getting jobs. And so we're going to come to a point where we have airplanes and no one to fly them. This happened in the US a few years ago. And when we arrive at that point, it's not the time to start with the manpower shortages in the industry. It takes a number of years to gear up the personnel required to operate the airplanes, operate the airports, operate the control towers, fix and maintain these airplanes. So there's serious work that has to be done in the aviation sector, led by the Ministry of Aviation.
And we always complain that we don't have manpower in almost every sector. But you see graduates, engineers, experts, including pilots, who have graduated, whether at home or abroad, roaming the streets without jobs. Where is the problem? Because I know at a time, and I'm also sure you are aware of, during the former governor of Kano State, I think Konkoso, he sponsored quite a number of young people. They went abroad for training and they came back as pilots. We had cause to interview quite a number of them. They said they are unable to get jobs. So where is the problem?
Well, thank you. That was the exact issue we addressed when we looked at this issue. The issue is that out of school, you don't have the necessary expense to be given an airplane to operate. But you need to get that experience. Abroad, a lot of these young pilots come out of school, then they can fly airplanes to spray chemicals in France. They fly to tow banners, they fly advertising, they fly all kinds of things which we do not have in this environment. And so that's where we called on the agency, the government, and all other parts that need to address this problem to start to look at their avenues. We have killed the sector called general aviation, which is where we get the training and experience required, both for pilots and engineers and all others, before they can build the necessary time to get in and fly a commercial jet with support behind them. We need to revive that. That is a key requirement. And these things are only possible through government policy. Flying is learning to fly is expensive. And I've indicated, it's not even the fact that people can't learn. People are learning and not get jobs. And we need to create these mechanisms for them to get jobs that give them the necessary experience so that the opportunities for jobs arise. And so these are the challenges we discussed. And these are the challenges we must address on with regard to the aviation industry.
And I want you to talk on the cost of flying, for instance, from Abuja to Lagos. Sometimes you see a ticket up to 150,000 one way. Sometimes 100, if you are lucky, around 80, 90. if you put this together, you know, it's easier for you to even travel. If you look at the mileage to travel out of the country using, you know, airline than to travel within Nigeria. Can you shed more light on why we are not getting it right here at home?
The problem is that we're actually not getting it right because we are actually lowering the cost to the point where it is killing the industry. The reality of it is that aviation is a dollar business. About 90% of everything around that business is booked in dollar. And so when the exchange rate goes up, all of the components from fuel to pilot trade to engineering to spare parts are all dollars. So all those numbers rise. And so the only way you can recapture it is through the increase in the naira value to cover those costs. And that's the reality. When we see an 80,000 ticket, we're looking at a $55 ticket. Even if it's a 1 hour segment, $55 is actually low fare in any environment. And so when we get to $60, 60,000, talking about a $100 to $110 ticket, which is a comparable fare, because aviation in Nigeria is different from aviation in the UK or the US. It's all dollarized. And so the reality of it is that we're going to feel those impacts in our prices. And what that does is down the demand for services, which lowers the incomes for these airlines and create a number of challenges. So again, broad-based solve the issue around domesticating maintenance, domesticating aviation fuel, domesticating all kinds of things that reduce the dollar impact, including training. Look, the Nigerian Civil Aviation Training Center has a simulator they've had for years that is not certified. If they had certified it, it would have resulted in training being done in Nigeria for some types of aircraft. That would have reduced the dollar component of that situation. Aircraft leases are dollarized and so on. So we have to deal with, again, it's economic. The fares are going up because of the very rough economic times we find ourselves. But we, as like everything else, we looked at this thing holistically, from the government point of view down to the private sector, and solve the problems and try not to extract maximum value from low outputs and try to expand industry, first will come down as the economy improves.
And recently, you know, the federal government, both the current administration and its predecessor, you know, showcased airports, that they have fantastic airports across the country. But some of the mishaps we've noticed of recent have been attributed to poor navigation equipment. Could that be true?
Well, let me start by saying that it's not the correct notion to assume that aviation is 100% accident-free. And so what we've had over the years are a number of incidents, very few, maybe 3 or 4. If you think about the total number of hours flown by aircraft, it is so minor, or the total number of take-off landings that take off, they're very minor. So obviously we're going to find ourselves with these incidents. When the runway is wet and the airplane can't brake enough, you're going to have a situation where the aircraft leaves the runway. It is not usual, but it is not totally 100% avoidable. But no lives are lost, and no lives have been lost for over a decade in the industry. And that is a good sign that there is no safer means of travel than air travel. But there will be incidents. There will be overruns. There will be birds flying into engines of aircraft. There will be incidents of something happened, like a door popping as a result of pressure or things like that. But at the end of the day, there isn't a safer means of travel. And even though they're happening at airports, remember, the most difficult phase of flying is departure and take and landing. And so that's where we're bound to see more of the incidents. But it doesn't make the process less safe, and it doesn't make the process unusual. Nothing major has happened, and we continue to pray that not only just pray, but work towards the fact nothing major will happen in our airspace.
In what way do you think the federal government will support you? Because recently there were some musings here and there over the $300 helicopter landing. You know, what is your take on that? Will you people survive some of these increasing charges?
Well, you talk about the increases in charges and fares, and that is simply the implication of the increase in cost. There is no justification for a $300 landing at a facility not owned and operated by the government. You're collecting money for doing nothing. And that has been the issue with this. I'm collecting it in dollars. What is $300 a day rate? Over 450,000 naira. How many people in a helicopter? 6, 8? Take 450,000 and divide by 8 people on top of the fuel cost, on top of the navigation cost that the government is already charging, on top of the maintenance cost, on top of service charges. We're simply doing everything we can to build this business. Government needs to step back and stop looking at every opportunity to extract more blood, more already dying elephants. That's the situation that we face. There is no justification. If you want to charge 300 for a specific airport that you're providing high-level services at night using all kinds of equipment, that's fine. And if people don't want to pay it, then they will not go to that airport. But I can't take off from house and land in my village and pay $300 for the privilege of doing it natural and will what's supposed to grow this industry.
I want to have your take on the inability of Nigeria to have a national carrier. If you go around, banana republics around the country, they all have national carrier. Up to now, it's a big elephant in the room in Nigeria. The Nigeria Air in my mind.
Nigeria needs a national carrier to fill the gaps that exist from the private sector carriers. So we don't need a national carrier that decimates and kills the existing private airlines. And that has always been my position against America's moves to bring a foreign carrier to come and operate the national carrier. I consider that a highly shame act that a nation as great as Nigeria cannot organize an airline and cause a country that's considered one of the poorest on earth come and operate one for us. And so the reason we don't have a national carrier today, selfish interests of those that are responsible for doing things in the best interest of the citizens of Nigeria. Hopefully, this administration will look at it again and come up with a formula that allows us to operate a national carrier that we can be proud of. See how proud Nigerians are about Air Peace carrying Nigerians to London. Yes, we enjoy British Airways, enjoy Air France, but the fact that we can go without is very lifting, and that is the fact that Nigerians want to see an Indian carrier taking them to various parts of the world. We're one of the most traveled people in the world, and so we need a level of service that benefits economy, not one that extracts value from our economy.
All right, thank you very much, Captain, for joining us from Lagos and for your interesting perspective to all of these issues we raised. We hope to have you some other time.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being on the show.
All right, thank you. And viewers who've been, via Zoom with Captain Alex Ngoba, renowned aviation analyst, consultant, and president of Aircraft Owners Association of Nigeria. And that's a wrap on today's package. We sincerely hope you found the conversation engaging and informative. And be sure to join Daily Politics Live, airing every weekday, and our special package on Friday, during which we open the telephone line for you to comment on national issues. Bye-bye for now. I am Hamza Idris.